So as nutritionists, we literally focus only on what we eat, how we eat, when we eat, our movement, blah, 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 and all that stuff. But what happens when we're not eating? We don't dive into that dark space as nutritionists. And that's the way I'm looking at intuitive fasting. And like everything I bring you, let's be open, be an open-minded skeptic. I think that's how I approach almost everything in my life, so that I can keep up with my neural flexibility, learn where I need to learn, and not get stuck in one pattern is right and everything is wrong. So being an open-minded skeptic is phenomenal. And so I'm going to ask all of us here to throw out any misconceptions about fasting, and let's learn what happens when we don't eat. It's just funny. I don't know if you're getting the humor in this, but as a nutritionist, there's so much humor in focusing on not eating. Anyway, ultimately, what we eat is most important when we speak about the confines of nutrition. So most importantly, that's our top. But this dark side has some eye-opening, thought-provoking benefits that are worth noting. So let's dive into the dark side. So the term fasting has gotten a terrible reputation, right? Right there, that's what we think about when we think about fasting. That and lots of toilet paper and trips to the bathroom. So the term fasting has taken on an extreme and overly restrictive connotation, as it's been hijacked and monetized by the food, supplement, and weight loss industry. This is nothing new to us nutritionists. Those industries have always preyed on our vulnerability, have preyed on our fears. That is how their space, their multi-billion-dollar space, has been created. Play this game with yourself. The minute you feel vulnerable about your weight, your skin, your sleep, your anything, any bodily function, and watch what happens. Boom, you'll see an advertisement for a diet pill. Boom, you'll see a hair growth pill. And I always ask myself, has it always been there? Or how do they know at this moment I'm feeling vulnerable? I'm feeling like what I did 30 years ago is not working right now. Oh my God, what do I do? And in that moment, a diet pill pops up on the screen. And I think it's important to realize that it's the consumer, it's us who are unaware and unsure, and we are driving that movement around fasting, food, supplement, weight loss. We are truly the ones driving the behavior. But what if we become aware? What if we become enlightened? Can we actually, based on being more educated, start to change the patterns of consumerism and see people's dollars go to what's important, like organic foods, gardening, moving your body, etc. So I really believe that learning about this is so much deeper than just learning about fasting. It's actually helping us as professionals and enthusiasts share the world to become more enlightened. And I actually found through just really, really diving into fasting that there's something very much human about it, that there is a beautiful human side. And it really piqued my curiosity. So I really drew into it. And I realized that our bodies do have a natural cycle. And sometimes we don't fit into society's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? We were told this when we were 1 year old. Okay, your child's ready to be weaned from breastfeeding. Stop feeding that child every 2-3 hours on demand and start feeding it breakfast, lunch, and dinner based on our society. But what if we are quiet for a moment? What if we give ourselves a reset so that we could really see what we want to eat? We could really get in touch with our instinctive eating patterns. And could that make us healthier? So I think by exploring fasting, I'm able to really take a pause and teach people how to take a pause, listen to more triggers, listen to the signaling is a top word here. And also, I'm also proud that now I can help people take a full approach to their metabolism, not just using the tools around eating versus using tools around not eating. And then we're going to get into one of the coolest words. You know, I love words. Last week we did autophagy. We're going to go into a word called metabolic flexibility. I first heard about this word through Dr. Will Cole. Adore him, functional medicine expert and New York Times bestseller. His book on intuitive fasting is our source of most of our source. It's 75% of the source of our of this presentation today. So Dr. Will Cole, intuitive fasting. I love him. He has a beautiful, beautiful connection with food and teaches it amazingly. So I also want to preface this by saying, while that book is great for us on this call, you don't want to recommend it to someone who is not ready for that type of information. So this book is best for people who already have a knowledge about why we eat, how to eat clean, what vital nutrients one needs, and there has to be a fair base of nutrition knowledge. But I love the fact that this book will dispel the non-eating chronic calorie restriction belief system around fasting and shines light on some powerful pluses of intuitive fasting. So with that being said, we're going to dive more into the metabolic flexibility after we really figure out what is intuitive fasting. So intuitive fasting is a lifestyle practice that involves going specific periods of time without eating based on the individual's needs. Notice we did not say anything about calorie restriction, rather restrictions of periods of time of eating. I think that is really important. And there's many types of intuitive fasting, but these are the 4 that I see the most. First is called modified, or what you hear now called fast mimicking, where they limit calories to no more than 700 per day on certain days. You can find this in a program called Prolon, which has some really deep research at the University of Southern California, USC. You see this being brought to you by people who study the blue zones around the world, and they only recommend it once, twice, maximum 4 times a year for 5 days max. So really put it in perspective. I think when people think of fasting, they think of something they do all the time or every day. This is an interesting concept called fast mimicking, where people are actually eating, but they're mimicking the effects of fasting for about 5 days, once or twice a year. That's it. Another type of intuitive fasting is called 2 days. It's when you eat whole foods for 5 days and then restrict the calories 2 days. This is in cycle and always and continuous. Very hard, I think. Even harder, a 5-2 intuitive fasting. Eat clean for 5 days, and the other 2 you don't eat at all. That's like choosing 2 days a week to not eat at all. These are what I'm calling extreme. And then we get to what we know as the most popular, which is time-restricted intuitive fasting. This is where you focus on when you start and stop eating on a given day. This is every day. And it creates what you have as an eating window. And that eating window is usually 12, 10, 8, or 6 hours a day. Also has its level of extremity involved in it. So those are the types of fasting. So over the time, this is where I really want it, because this was pretty good. The origin. So used for centuries as a way to strengthen the human body and optimize overall health. Fasting has long been used to reconnect us, to get some type of clarity, to have some type of sacrifice, or be more responsive to higher powers in almost every global religion. So we do see fasting in religion, right? Ceremonies. So we do see it. This is ancient. We also see Native American tribes practicing it before their vision quest. This is also how our ancestors had to live. They didn't always have Publix right down the street. So there were times when the human body did not have food. And the human body for centuries and centuries and centuries had time to adapt to that type of eating. So our human body is currently adapted to fasting periods in evolution, right? Refrigerator's brand new. I'll go over that more in a little bit. And then also Hippocrates used it for medical purposes. He had seizure disorders disappear through fasting. So we do see the origins go back in ancient, go back as long as we know of time. But I think one that's most interesting to me is the fact that refrigeration grocery stores is a brand new phenomena. We are probably the second generation of all time to experience that type of lifestyle. In the thousands and thousands and thousands of years behind us, our bodies are adapted to fasting. It knows what to do during fasting. It knows how to store fat for famine. It knows what to do. So this new lifestyle comes around, but our body's like, what the heck? Like, I don't know how to respond to the fact that you have food available 24/7, 6 feet away from you at all times. So this is a new kind of evolutionary interesting concept. And that's the fact that our body adapted to fast and has adapted to fasting in the past. Like, you had a bad farming crop. You had a bad hunting season. You went hungry, and that's encoded in our DNA. So I think it's pretty interesting. And what we are seeing, this is why this is a continuation of when we talked about autophagy 2 months ago, is we're seeing less autophagy because of this. We're seeing less cellular turnover. And could that dry, crusty cells filled with environmental toxins, filled with lipids, could that also be contributing to our chronic disease? Yes. So I think if we look at the history of fasting, we also will be able to expand our minds to understanding a little bit more. So I want to dive into the benefits of intuitive fasting, but quite frankly, when I read all the benefits, they all fall under this umbrella of metabolic flexibility. And I think this is a term that nutritionists need to be more aware of, because it's all signaling for energy, it's ATP, it's mitochondria, it's all kinds of things fall under this umbrella. So if we understand metabolic flexibility, I think we'll be able to see where some of these benefits are coming from. So metabolic flexibility, very simply, is the body's ability to adapt and use whatever fuel is available to it. So based on what I have going on and what I have going in my body will either use sugar or use fat. Those are our two ways to get, and by sugar, I mean carbs, sugar, whatever you want to call it, and fat. These are the two sources of energy we have in our body. These are the two ways we can put something in our body, and will know what to do with it to create energy through the mitochondria. But what happens is we have what's called a condition now being called mitochondrial indecision. Just like we must practice our flexibility externally through yoga, everyone, the age-old question, why can't your grandma touch your toes? Because she stopped trying. So that's, it's that routine of constantly practicing that allows us to remain flexible. What's happening though, because I have food 6 feet away from me at all times, our body's not practicing that flexibility. And quite frankly, I'm going to explain in a minute why our body's basically always burning the sugar and doesn't know or doesn't touch into the fat as much as we could. And just like the body must practice using the switch from sugar to fat to sugar burning for energy usage to create proper signaling for the body's needs. So I'm going to explain this in this fireplace analogy, and I love this. Will Cole talks about this also on his Instagram. Imagine your body is a fireplace. sugar is the kindling and fat is the big old dry log. While our society tends to be much more of a high sugar, high carb snacking culture, our bodies have now learned how to just rely on the kindling as fuel. As a result, our cells have lost the ability to quickly and efficiently switch. Say, wait, she doesn't have sugar in her body. She doesn't have carbs. Let me go find that fat. That is metabolic flexibility. We're losing that ability. The ability to maintain consistent energy, which also leads to loss in some brain power and also skewed signalings for appetite. And the energy center of our brain is called the mitochondria. And the mitochondria has literally created an army of cells that are just signaling for carbs. So when people want sugar, 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 it's literally beyond their control. It's their mitochondria giving these signals because it hasn't been practicing flexibility to use the fat. Anyway, I thought that was so fascinating. And what happens is we lose sight of what we are truly hungry for. Isn't this fascinating? So here's the benefits that I have found. I found 6 top benefits to intuitive fasting. And I use that word intuitive because I do believe every situation, every human being is different and needs to be addressed as such. So I like that word intuitive because it really shares the uniqueness of the different ways in which you can fast. So here are the 6 benefits I find of intuitive fasting, all which fall under that metabolic flexibility. So we could literally say the best benefit of fasting is metabolic flexibility, and then these, but let me dive in a little deeper under that umbrella. Number 1, overwhelmingly, every scientist and every doctor that I'm reading is talking about blood sugar balance, where we have less reliance on sugar for energy, and we can relieve the insulin response. So remember, when our blood sugar drops, our body can sometimes go, our body goes to the muscle, and when we're in calorie restriction, the body will go to the muscle and be like, holy crap, she's not giving me enough food. I'm gonna break this muscle down and turn it into energy. Well, what happens with less muscle is we actually come back with a much less strong metabolism. We eventually go back to eating not in calorie restriction because it's not human to sustain calorie restriction. Just like my bank account can't sustain a restriction, neither can our human bodies. So when the body goes back and you start eating normal again, but now your metabolism is lower, you gain the weight back and some. This is called yo-yo dieting. And I'm just literally telling you the story about weight loss, but blood sugar stabilization is inflammation, is gut health, is cardiovascular. You get better VO2 max, better output, better metrics. Your lungs will work better. Your the gut health, everything can fall under that blood sugar balance. Also, we find under the metabolic flexibility umbrella, gut health. When we are in resting mode from food, we're not digesting all the time, the microbiome goes, whew, God, all right, we don't have to spend so much time digesting that food. Let's get ourselves balanced. Let's housekeep. Leptin optimization. Leptin is a very big hormone that nutritionists talk about. Ghrelin and leptin, they are the pair. Ghrelin is our hormone that makes us hungry, signals hunger. Leptin is our signal that we are satisfied. But leptin also it's actually a fat hormone. I didn't know this. And leptin optimization will allow the human body to not store as fat, not go into starvation mode, not go into famine mode. And it will say, oh, she's got this. I'm going to open up my fat cell and I'm going to let that leptin, I'm going to let that lipid go. She's got this. She's also got this so much that this is where GMOs are stored. This fat cell stores all kinds of environmental toxins. While it's open, our body releases environmental debris. And that debris is now being studied, and it is the most fascinating research now on Earth. I'm loving it. It really shows us individually what our body has accumulated too much of and what we need to get rid of. That's a whole nother area I love. Number 4, reduces chronic inflammation. So remember, when you get that microbiome right and the blood sugar's balanced, the adrenals start working well, and we all start reducing inflammation. Ketones, very controversial at first, but if you think about it, it's just a compound that the liver makes, and it signals whether you should burn fat as a fuel source. So when you are sleeping at night, the liver says, hey, she's not giving us food. Hey, the mitochondria says, hey, you can burn some fat. So ketones are signaling, get released, signaling the brain, and we go into fat burning mode. And then weight loss. So we're going to dive into this because I think most people associate fasting with weight loss. And I want to make a clear education. Remember, this is about empowerment and enlightenment of us. And I want to make a clear distinction that it is not a direct effect, rather a side effect. It is falling, all of these are falling under the metabolic flexibility umbrella, because fasting has, in true fasting, true intuitive fasting. Now, trust me, there's lots of schools out there that are fasting to just be in caloric deficit. But true fasting has nothing to do about being calorie restrictive, rather limited in times of consumption. So, and I think it's important to realize, I want to go to this piece because this was kind of important. So weight loss is a side effect of intuitive fasting. Our bodies are not just calorie counters. We are all very complex. I almost think of our body as the most complex chemistry lab. And diets fail because of that chronic restriction, eating muscle, lower metabolism, body. That's why diets are failing. And the theory is that intermittent intuitive fasting actually does wake up a lot of these healing mechanisms. It is improving homeostasis. It is improving gut health. It is improving fat burning. So when metabolic flexibility starts working, and you have all these healing mechanisms, even down into, hormones, we're seeing hormones affected. Well, of course it's going to lead to a body composition change. Well, of course we're going to see it. But remember, that is not the main reason for true fasting. So I think it's most importantly, as I want you to take home today, that intuitive fasting causes fundamental shifts in the body's physiology, and that helps the body burn more fat, feel less hungry, signal properly, signal exactly the food we need properly, regain our energy, and we find it easier to maintain that healthier body composition. That is the connection, the true connection between fasting and weight loss. It is not direct at all. It is choosing metabolic flexibility, and it's doing those 6 positive things. And when you do that and you move your well-being in that direction, what's going to happen? The body's going to find its ideal weight. It is meant to find its ideal weight. If we can remove the toxins, remove the confusion, remove the noise, remove everything, have a moment to be at peace, take a moment, take pause in what we're doing, listen to what the body needs, then the body becomes better at signaling. We listen to those signals, hence nutrition programs, listen to those signals, and then we see improvements in body composition. So I think that's what really helped me see the difference between people, the regular cause and effect of fasting as a diet and losing weight versus fasting as a health benefit, and that health benefit bringing the weight. So this surprised nutritionist found benefits when not eating. And the ones that stick out the most to me are the fact that it's resetting our bodies. It's making us more metabolically flexible. Our hormones, our metabolism is burning better. Hormesis, we talked about this 2 months ago, remember? That's why when a hurricane comes, a tree actually grows stronger for the next decade. That stress, that positive stressor actually created growth. So hormesis, we're seeing cellular resistance through the positive stressor of fasting. Autophagy, I can't say enough about autophagy. I want to get shirts made with this. This is getting rid of our cells that are not working, letting those cells turn over, get rid of them, create new ones. That is, autophagy is the anti-aging piece. That's it. People come to me for anti-aging. Well, we got to find a way to cellular renewal. We've got to find a way to autophagy. Blood sugar balance. I can't say that enough. Again, lowering that glucose ingestion and also getting rid of the fat and the debris stores. Remember, our blood sugar, when it's not in balance, our pancreas is sending out insulin and glucagon all freaking day long. And one day it says, I'm exhausted, I'm retiring, I'm going to a golf course in Florida, you're on your own, peace out, here's your diabetes. And last thing I loved is reduced inflammation. And when we reduce the inflammation is just static and chatter in the body. And what it's doing is it's interrupting all the signaling for upregulation of genes, for upregulation of metabolism, for upregulation of all these systems in our body. Inflammation just can be, it's like static, it just gets in the way. If we can reduce that inflammation and allow the signaling to work, get out of the body's way, let it work, and then go to a nutritionist and then say, okay, here's a program to reduce inflammation. Here's the action steps you can take so that your body can continue to work naturally. So these were the 5 big reasons. And I was like, there's something to this. And I'm going to find a way to help people with this. So when it comes to nutrition, ultimately, most importantly, it's about the quality and quantity of food and supplements you put into your body during whatever eating window you are. But it's smart to know what happens on the other side so that we can harness all of the human body's potential. Well-being is truly fun and actually quite magical when you have open-minded skepticism. So there is my presentation on fasting and why I think it's valuable to know and valuable to be aware. And I hope by all of us on this call, we can actually drive consumerism to spending dollars, time, and energy in ways that truly help us all as humanity and not just starve ourselves.